Clint, can we just play that over and over again? I
Hey,
mean, I could watch that all day long.
it brings back a lot of great memories during my time, obviously playing, and even got my proposal in there, which is nice, and the jersey popping in
Yep.
Lawrence, and so a lot of great memories.
Yeah, Clint Stewart's more than just a former K-State basketball player, right? He's a husband. He's an emotional guy. He's also out there um, on ESPN Plus. I'm glad that GoPowercat's able to keep a big shot like you around nowadays. How was that, by the way?
Oh, stop it, man! It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed, obviously working with Ben Boyle and then having an opportunity to call the game and ended up being a great game against Tulsa. I mean, it went down to the wire. And with Tulsa, I know Coach Conkle really well, from my time in Bartlesville, and he obviously recruited David Castillo as well. So I got a chance to know him and his staff. So it's kind of fun catching up with them, before the game and shoot around and things too. And so for me, it was a blast, man. I really enjoyed it and looking forward to doing more in the future.
It must be pretty surreal. You're behind the mic at the school you played basketball at, calling plays for a guy that you coached. I mean, that's just, I can't imagine the feelings that were going through your mind throughout that game.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal, and just obviously thankful for the opportunity. Brian Smoller gave me a call and a chat, over the summer and asked if it's something I'd be interested in, and I'm just really thankful for the opportunity to be able to do it, and it was a lot of fun. I also got a lot of texts that night from friends and family, and then just K-State, community and things of that nature, and so I'm just really thankful, like I said, to have that opportunity to do that.
I'm Ryan Gilbert, managing editor. I don't think I said that of GoPowercat. He is Clent Stewart. He's the star of the show. If you've been around with us at GoPowercat over the years, this is really no different than the Friday shoot around that we've done. But Clint, this is all about you. We had to rename it the Clent Stewart Show. So we appreciate you doing this once again. We plan to be back every week from now until the end of basketball season, maybe multiple times a week. We'll see. Me and Clint and Fitz, we've talked about going live on some of these shows, get some comments and interaction with the listeners. I think those could be a lot of fun. But for now, Clint, you were, like we said, you were on the call for that game against Tulsa. And anybody that's watched this team on television can probably get a sense for maybe how fun things are on the court. But when you're there in person, this is really, really similar to maybe some of the energy and charisma that first Jerome Tang team had back in 2022 and 23 when they went to Elite Eight.
Yeah, it really is, and I think what you see is there's a lot of good chemistry with this team, and the guys like playing together, like playing with each other. Obviously, PJ Haggerty's the head of the snake, right? I mean, he's obviously tremendous talent, and we know what he can do. But there's multiple guys that are stepping in the roles and filling it up. Right, Abdi Bashir being able to shoot the basketball. David Castillo, you see him coming on his second year as a sophomore this year. Nate Johnson, who a lot of people, we kind of know what he could do defensively, but his ability to score the ball and also shoot it from the outside have just been tremendous. And then Kamari McGriff, you look at a couple games there where he was, I don't know, shooting maybe 80-90%, and had like 37 points in 2 games, and so just multiple guys stepping up. And I think the depth of this team on the offensive side of the ball is really good, and it shows when you play a team against Tulsa. And PJ Haggerty didn't do much in the first half, and yet we were still there in the game because other guys stepped up, and then it allowed him to take over late and just do what he does to go finish and get the win. So very fun team. They play fast. I'm sure Coach Tang wants a little bit more defense instilled in the games, but right now I'm sure he'll take the offense. Just given some of the struggles offensively last year, that's fun being around a team that can really score the ball.
With Matthew Driscoll coming in, it was offense, and the emphasis was on that side of the floor. And now that the season's kind of gotten going, the offense is maybe where you want it to be. Defensively, there's still room for this team to improve. So to just say this is what the defense is going to be like all season long, Kansas State has not spent nearly as much time simply working on that defense compared to the offense. So if you want to be concerned, I get it, but give it time. That is one aspect where I truly wouldn't hit the panic button. The defense will come. And Clint, you mentioned the depth on this team. I feel like a lot of people, maybe including myself to a degree, just believed it was going to be the Haggerty and Nate Johnson and Abdi Bashir show, and it was a three-headed monster at the guard spot. Oh, there's nothing down low. K-State can't compete in the paint. Well, not only is it a much deeper roster, like you said, with some of those guards, and we'll get to David Castillo in a second, but down low in the paint, man, Kamari McGriff's been awesome. I mean, Doreen Buka has come, honestly, a really long way from where we are now from 3 weeks ago from the scrimmage at Mizzou. Moby, K-State was able to compete in the paint without him against Tulsa. And then Elias Rapique has kind of done a little bit of everything. So, yeah, the guards are great, and the depth around them has been better than expected. But you look down low in the paint, K-State's not probably – I wouldn't say K-State's not going to lose any games in the paint, but this group down low is proven it's going to battle night in and night out.
Yeah, and I think when you see, Kamari McGriff and Rapiak and those guys, they understand what their role is, right? And they understand they're not the primary option, but still they are available to fill their role and score the ball when they need to. And then you kind of see the fruits of that with Kamari McGriff. And, those guys are going to be big time, especially when it comes to the Big 12. I mean, being able to battle down in the paint, scoring for us, there's been a lot of talk about the outside shooting, but we've actually averaged 51 points in the paint the last 2 games. And so that's huge, and a lot of that is PJ Haggerty getting in there, but McGriff has really been scoring the ball well, especially if he gets to his left hand. He has really good footwork in the paint, and he's able to just, take his time, and there's going to be opportunities because the guards are so prolific from the outside. He's going to get a lot of one-on-one opportunities down there. And then, you mentioned Doreen Buka. You can tell each game he's getting a little bit better, just kind of understanding, what he needs to do, especially defensively, his ability to change shots at the rim. A lot of times it's not about blocking the shot. It's just his presence makes it harder or makes it a tough shot when the guards get in there and try to finish. And so you see some good things out of him. And last game, Taj Manning, with Moby not playing, Taj got a chance to get some.
Yeah.
He came in. I thought he played well. Got an offensive rebound, put back. Played hard, did what he needed to do. And so it's really exciting to see multiple guys just stepping up and in their role.
Yeah, Jerome Tang was quick to point out the positives that Taj Manning brought in this game, even if he was only on the court for 8 minutes. Still, you won the game. He was a contributor in that, and I think by and large he wasn't a negative when he stepped on that hardwood. And in Jerome Tang's first year, there was no center. You look at the last couple of years, and there's Will McNair and Jerome Colbert, Ogana Onyenso. I don't know if there's a direct correlation there, Clint, but those last couple of years, K-State didn't make the big dance. And when you've got Naquan Tomlin, David Gasson playing down low at the 5, you go to the Elite 8.
Well, Coach Tang, when he took over at Kansas State, he really wanted to kind of model this team like the Baylor teams that Scott Drew and him had, and those teams really didn't have a center. I mean, they had guys that were kind of ball screen, kind of lob guys, but they weren't guys that clogged up the paint.
Yeah.
And they kind of kept the paint open for the guards to drive, and maybe they got some dump offs and things of that nature. But that's how he wants to really use his bigs, and I think we're seeing some of that now. That doesn't take away the fact that, hey, there's mismatches inside, or Kamari McGriff or Rapiak or someone really gets it going inside, like, okay, yeah, well, they'll throw the ball inside to him and then let him go one-on-one. But I think what we're seeing is that first year and this year are more the style of play that Coach Tang wants his teams playing with, where you have a bunch of guards who can shoot the ball from the outside. You have guards that can drive the basketball, get to the rim, get to the free throw line. Then you have bigs that are just kind of playing supplement to all that, right? They're kind of setting screens, rolling, rebounding, putbacks. Every now and then they'll get a one-on-one opportunity. They're catching dump offs to finish. That's how he really wants to play. So it's great to see that he has the guys that do that.
And just kind of reading between the lines, Clint, Jerome Tang, and you were around on Monday against Tulsa, he just seems more at ease. He's happy with this team. And not that the last couple of years weren't fun for Jerome Tang to coach, but they went out and they got the right group of guys for this team.
Yeah, and that goes back to just, the staff and what they're able to just evaluate, right? And so, each year as coaches, they got to look at, what went right and what went wrong. And a lot of times the what went wrong is hard to admit, right? But I think one of the things that, Coach Tang mentioned last year was just, the NIL stuff, just kind of messed with him a little bit, right? Like just working with guys that are making money and making this much money, and how to handle that. And the guys are going through a lot because, they're getting, stuff from people, because they're making money, and he has to handle it as not only a coach, but also a father figure. And, there's just a lot to kind of learn. And I think, he mentioned that he doesn't believe that maybe he even handled some things right, and that takes, that's a strong leader in my eyes. I mean, to be able to admit that. And then, even from, the offensive side of the ball, I think Coach Tang was openly on air saying, hey, I brought in Coach Driscoll because I wanted someone who knew the offense better than me, right? And I wanted someone who could really get these guys with that, he knew we have talent coming in, someone that can really get us, where we need to be. And as a head coach, like I said, to be able to humbly say, I'm bringing in someone that's better than me on this part, this aspect of this specialization, just goes to show, his leadership that he has for the program and for the team. So I know he's really excited about the group of guys he has, the chemistry. But, when you have a team that can score, when you put the ball in the basket, it makes it fun. I mean, we love defense. We love, tough games, with the Virginia style, but the Virginia style isn't necessary. You can win, but it's not necessarily fun to watch, right? it's a slugfest, right? And so, when the ball's going through the basket, it's a lot of fun to coach and a lot of fun to be around.
Back to your first point, Clint, and yeah, I think the fans, it's just you're more likely to see a sold-out Bramlage Coliseum when it's 101 to 96 compared to 53 to 49, right? It's just better to watch. For right or wrong, at the end of the day, you're only supposed to win the games, but when you're scoring and that's the strength of your team, it's really exciting. But, Clint, going back to the first part of what you said there, I think the Europeans, probably their most valuable asset coming to this program is that they are professionals. These guys understand they're getting paid such and such an NIL. Well, you're still expected to work, right? Jerome Tang, and Jerome Tang's admitted this last year. Guys are getting money, millions of dollars, allegedly, right? He maybe assumed they would just attack every day as if they were earning that money. They're professionals, and that's not always the case. And so Jerome Tang's learned that when he's going out and getting these guys, yeah, it's more than just you're going to get your money and work. Jerome Tang talked about waking up early and having habits and attacking each day. Like that stuff matters to him. That's what they value, and they've got a good group. But you mentioned Matthew Driscoll, Clint. Just go ahead. I mean, Matthew Driscoll, what else do you need to say?
That's it. I mean, he's as sharp as they come.
Yep.
And being around, a couple practices, and even over the summer when we were there with TBT, and being around shoot around. I mean, just detailed. I mean, talk about a guy that every detail matters. And a lot of people can say that, but someone who really lives up to that, and he makes sure that the guys know. I mean, if you're not facing the right way on the screen, if your body's not coming off the screen the right way, right? It's everything. And so, even the things that you might think are minuscule or small, I mean, he makes sure that that they are important, and that's how he gets his the offense to run smoothly. And so, he's just a phenomenal guy. Obviously, given his background working with Coach Tang at Baylor under Scott Drew, and then obviously going up to North Florida for 16 seasons as the head coach. So he has a lot of experience. He's really good with the guys, and like I said, it's as detailed as they come, and just a fun guy to be around. So I'm happy. I'm happy he's part of K-State now, and obviously on Tank's staff, and I think the guys are really happy having him as well.
I don't want to take anything away from what Matthew Driscoll has brought to the program. I also don't want to take anything away from the dudes on the court going out and making plays. Is it, Clint, is it the perfect blend, you know what I mean, of a really good offensive-minded coach and just talented players coming together?
It's funny you say that because I don't know who said it, but I know there was a coach that said, I'd be a better coach if I had better players. and when you have good players, right, it makes it a lot easier to coach. And players that want to attack the day every single day, that are talented enough to score the basketball, talented enough to defend the basketball. It just makes it a lot easier as a coach. So I think it is a perfect blend. He's had teams at North Florida that were really good shooting teams. And so when you bring in guys, and I'm sure as Coach Tang thought this through, like, okay, We didn't score the ball like we wanted to last year. We got to bring in guys that can shoot the ball from the outside, like Bashir, right? Like PJ Haggerty, who can obviously create and do everything he needs to do off the dribble. And then you have a guy's development like David Castillo, who's obviously developing really well. You bring in someone like Nate Johnson, who is just a dog on both sides of the floor. And then you pair that with, Coach Driscoll and the way Coach Tang wants to play, it is just the perfect blend.
Offensively, Clint, obviously you look at those guys and they're able to put the ball through the net from 3-point range. They were number 1 in the country heading into that Tulsa game. And then you go shoot 20% from beyond the arc and you still find a way to win. Somehow, some way you win the game. How encouraging is that for you as someone who really knows basketball to see that this team can win in other ways and not just have to rely on that 3-ball falling?
Yeah, well, I think a lot gets lost because there is a lot of talk right now about how well we have been shooting the basketball outside of the Tulsa game, right? And so it becomes a lot of like, okay, well, yeah, we're shooting the 3 really well. But like I mentioned, in the last 2 games, we're averaging 51 points in the paint. So for a team that can shoot the basketball really well from the outside, we can't forget about how well we have played driving the ball and getting it inside or getting it to McGriff inside. And then what that does is that opens up the outside shooting. So you shoot the ball really well, one, because you're getting good shots, right? And why are you getting good shots is because you're touching the paint. And so teams have to collapse, right? And then you're kicking the ball out or you're getting out in transition. Dave Castillo hit a 3 in transition, right? So, those things are really important to be able to shoot the ball really well. And for most teams that are good outside shooters, I think back to Golden State. When Golden State had the Klay Thompson and Curry and Durant, they're that's the best outside shooting team ever. They were also the best defensive team, and they also got the ball in the paint. And those guys put pressure on the rim, and that's what really made them just hard to guard, all the way around.
I feel like we buried the lead here a little bit, Clint, with David Castillo. If anybody wants to say they were surprised by Castillo, that's fair in what he's done this year, given maybe his struggles in his freshman season. To say he came out of nowhere and completely changed as a player, though, David Castillo always had this in him, and nobody, and I mean nobody, would know this better than you, Clint. So he's always been able to do this, and we're finally seeing him play to this level in his sophomore season. But I ask you, what really did change? Was it just a mental mindset of getting comfortable and establishing more of a role and maybe being a leader as someone that returns into this program? How has David Castillo really been able to flip this switch? Because he's, like I said, he's always had this in him. What's changed, though, now from year number 1 to year number 2?
Well, I think he's, a lot more comfortable but confident in what he can do, and I've known David since he was, 3, 4 years old. And that's been one of his biggest assets is he's always been confident. I mean, when he was, my son is 7, I think David was around that same age. I remember, watching him, obviously growing up in the gym and then playing, and he would make a shot and he'd run down the court, popping his own jersey, right? This is like 6, 7 years old, right? I mean, like, he was really confident and his abilities and what he could do on the floor. And so I think what you're seeing now is after, last year he struggled some, right? I mean, didn't shoot the ball as well as he wanted to, and that led to obviously, his minutes kind of being up and down a little bit. And so as a freshman coming in, there's a lot to take in, not only on the basketball court and just the physicality, the speed, transitioning, learning, a new coach, new players, not only that, but then even off the court, right? I mean, college life, right? And you're on your own for the first time. And, even though, he went to Sunrise Christian, it's a lot different, on your own at Kansas State and in the classroom and things that you have to do there. And, what do you do in your free time? And it's a lot more tiring. I mean, practices are hard, and you're tired a lot. I mean, I remember if I could get like a 15-minute power nap in between classes, I would take it, and so there's just a lot of transition that he had to kind of learn last year, and now he's just more comfortable in all those aspects, right? And then not only that, but I think he's getting back to what got him here in the first place. David was tremendous high school talent, right? Won 2 gold medals. Obviously Bartlesville's all-time leading scorer. I'll put it this way: he was so good in high school that when he was a junior, his junior year, I mean, teams just double teamed him, like they were like we couldn't throw the ball into him. If we're coming up the floor, I had to move him off the ball because if we threw it into him, they're just going to double team him and get it out of his hands, right? And so we really had to make him run the two a lot just so we could actually run some normal offense. When he was a senior, or sorry, when he was a junior, and so he's tremendous talent, and he got back to just doing the things that got him to where he is today, right? That's being in the gym, working on his shot, game speed, just putting in hours and hours of work. I mentioned this on air. His brother Antonio Castillo, used to have him in the morning time every single morning. Those guys were working out. We practiced in the afternoon. He was there at 6 a.m. in the morning, getting shots up, right? And sometimes the Palm team, my wife was the Palm coach, and sometimes they had to kick him out of the gym because they had to do something in the gym practice-wise, right? And so, he's just a hard worker. It's good to see him getting back to doing those things, and it's good to see him kind of see the fruits of that as well, because a lot of times you could put in a lot of work and it like takes longer to see the fruits of that, and it kind of can get discouraging, right? Like, man, I'm getting a lot of these shots up, and still can't make a shot. Or, I mean, think about Shaquille O'Neal. You don't think he shot free throws? He shot free throws and still couldn't make them, right? So it's good to see that he's seeing the fruits of the hard work that he's putting in, and hopefully he can continue to get better.
Was it ankle, foot later in his high school career?
Yeah, his foot. Yep.
Do you think that played any role of maybe not hindering anything, but putting a pause on him playing at that high level?
Well, I know it did. It did set him back a little bit. And just coming off of that injury, and then even just mentally, right, coming off of a foot injury, can be tough. I know from like a scouting standpoint that obviously set him back because he didn't play that summer. And so that summer, there was a lot. He didn't get a chance to play with Team USA again like he was supposed to, and so he's kind of like the forgotten about point guard. So a lot of people kind of forgot about him, and he had to kind of work his way back into into that, and just the guys that a lot of guys that he played with, that he knows that he's just as good as or can play with those guys. They went on. They had pretty good seasons last year, right? I mean, you think about Trey Johnson at Texas, who's now in the NBA, and Ron Holland, who's now in the NBA, and things of that nature. And so, he's always known he could play with those guys. He did have a little bit of a setback, and I think now you're seeing, this is the reason why he was such a highly recruited player. I mean, because he's getting back to what he was able to do early on in his career, obviously at Bartlesville High School, but also some at Sunrise.
And now you're playing with a guy who can go out and create his own points in PJ Haggerty on seemingly every possession. Nate Johnson's defense is locked down. Abdi Bashir is, as Tang says, the best three-point shooter in the country. So David, tell me if I'm wrong here, doesn't have to feel like he's needing to be superhero night in and night out. Last year, Kansas State ended that season with a losing record. Maybe you just force things a little too much. Now, it's much easier to find yourself fitting into that puzzle when you're not forcing it. Yeah, that shot's there. I'm going to take it now. But last year, you feel like you got to take a shot every possession because your team's losing and you got to give them a spark. Well, now you've got some great playmakers surrounding you. He's really just come into this role of, he's aggressive. Don't get me wrong, Clint. He's been aggressive, but he's not forcing things too much.
Yeah, just letting the game come to him. And, there's a lot difference in playing with a guy like Doug McDaniel and playing with a guy like PJ Haggerty, right? And not that PJ is a big, tall, guard, but he is, 6'3", 6'4", and a little bit more physical, and it allows David to David can truly play off the ball and play the two, because PJ can do some things, with his size that maybe Doug McDaniel couldn't do, right? And so I think that's part of it as well. But also just think too, like I said, these guys, sharing the basketball, I think they're all just kind of finding their roles a lot quicker than what they did last year. Last year we talked quite a bit around don't really know what the role of some of the guys are, and couldn't really figure out how they wanted to play offensively. Like, are we playing through Coleman Hawkins? Are we playing through Doug and the ball screen? Are we playing, through Gasson? And I think what you're seeing now is, this team has kind of found how they want to play a lot earlier here in the season. We're only in game 4, and you can tell we want to play fast. We're going to play through PJ Haggerty, and then everyone else is going to be ready to shoot and make plays when their opportunity comes. and that's kind of how we play. And so I think that goes hand in hand with how David has already kind of established, like, okay, I know what my role is on this team. Right, I'm coming off the bench. I think he's averaging like 13, 14 points off the bench right now. But when he gets in there, he's looking like, you're in here to shoot the basketball, right? And you're in here to, if you're coming in for PJ Haggerty, okay, now you're coming in to be the one and run the point while PJ's out, right? And so he's just kind of knowing like what it is he's supposed to be doing. And when that's clear for players, it makes it so much easier to go out there and play your game, right? When you know what you're supposed to be doing.
I want to ask you about Andre Kostic, and he's not a carbon copy of David Castillo, but a young guard who, let's be blunt, has faced some adversity, hasn't been a star on this team, but there's plenty in the tank for that guy. I mean, he's got NBA draft pick potential written all over him. What would Coach Clint Stewart's message be to a young guy like that who's maybe facing something he hasn't faced yet? I mean, let alone the fact that he's coming over to America in a completely new environment.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. It's, the game, the American game versus the European game are a lot different, right? And just the physicality is a little bit different. The spacing is a little bit different. And so for him, I think it's learning every single day. Like, don't take a day for granted. Learn every single day. We know he can shoot the basketball. I got a chance to see him over the summertime. I was really excited about him. Just watching him working out and things. He's obviously a taller guard. He's played professionally overseas. It's just kind of adjusting to the game here in America and adjusting to what his role is, with this team. But I think he's a guy that as well is going to get better as the season goes on and as it becomes the Big 12 season. I think he'll have an opportunity to get even more minutes just because of, one, his size, his ability to shoot the basketball. And then, the other one is if he can get better at defending, right, where you say, okay, use your length that you have you don't have to be a lockdown defender, but you can't be a negative defender, right? And so from a team defensive standpoint, if he can get better at that, and I think you'll see him on the court a lot more.
Yeah, but he's got the speed and athleticism to be a good defender. It's not like he's slow and there's no hope. And
Right.
I guess that's a half glass full approach to Abdi Bashir. I know his defensive metrics last season weren't great, but he's quick. And so that's something that you can work on. I do want to switch gears, Clint. Coming up in Kansas City, K-State plays Mississippi State on Thursday, and then either Nebraska or New Mexico on Friday, a game in which Clent Stewart will be on the radio call for that one. So you're big time. You are truly big time. I hope you don't forget about us, like I said. But
right.
what are the pros and cons of this event? Last couple of years, it's been out in the Caribbean. Last year, it's Pacific. It's against lesser competition. You probably have more time to build that team camaraderie when you're out on the beach and having more fun. But now here you're close to home. You probably get a purple centric crowd at T-Mobile. What are the pros and cons of this compared to what we've been seeing the last couple of years out in the Caribbean?
Well, I think, being in Kansas City, as you mentioned, you hope to have a good crowd. That the travel is not daunting, right? I mean, it's right up the road. And so that the routine of the players is a lot more natural. Like, you're going to have your natural routine, and you're in a hotel, but it doesn't feel like you're, like I said, in the Bahamas, where it's like, hey, this is just, there's a lot to think about, right? And so a little bit more natural routine for the guys, and hopefully, what you see is, maybe a little bit more just kind of locked in, right? Because, we're not thinking about the beach, right? We're not thinking about those things. We're thinking about winning a basketball game and how we can do that. And so that's what you really hope. I know I'm sure from a coach's wives standpoint and staff standpoint, hey, we'd rather be in the Bahamas, and hanging out because we can go support you at the game, and then, hey, we're going to the beach. You guys go watch film and do all other stuff, but it's. I think it's really good for the team, and obviously being here in Kansas City, and it's good for our fan base, because like I said, you hope to have a good crowd that can really support the team this weekend.
As someone who was out there in the Virgin Islands last year, Bahamas the year before, I'll tell you firsthand, I'd rather be out at the Westin sipping on a pina colada than
Exactly.
maybe going to the hotel bar with Fitz. I'm just saying, I'd rather take that. But in all honesty, there is a lot more to gain here. And last year, you can still learn some stuff about your team, but there wasn't much to gain in hindsight, playing Liberty and playing some of these sub mid-major teams. Now, even if you lose to Mississippi State, that's not going to ding your resume too bad. Even if you lose, you're still going to learn against a pretty damn good team, hopefully two good teams when it's all said and done. So it's obviously better competition. At the end of the day, I'm gonna wave the flag and concede here. I'll take this Kansas City tournament for this team over the Virginia.
Over your pina colada, right?
Right. I'll make it work.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking for? I don't know if you've begun to scout these teams much, but matchups, schematics. What's Clent Stewart watching for?
Yeah, a little bit. I've looked a little bit over Mississippi State and a little bit over Nebraska. I haven't had a chance to look through New Mexico yet, but Mississippi State has a really good guard, Joshua Hubbard, and he's averaging 22 points per game right now. He's junior year, his third year with the program, averaging 5 assists. I think there'll be a really good matchup. He's about 6 foot, so a really good matchup between him and PJ. Two guys that can really score the ball, but also gets their teammates involved. So really look for that one. He is the head of their snake, and so for Kansas State, got to figure out a way to cut off the head of the snake, right? And if we can stop him and keep him out of the paint, and kind of control his scoring and his ability to get others open, then I think we'll have a really good shot at winning the basketball game. But like I said, he's a guy that can fill it up. He's had 2 games. I think one he had 25, another one he had 27. So I'm sure he's coming in thinking, he's ready to go. And he's probably really looking forward to the matchup against PJ Haggerty as well, because he wants to establish himself as a guard of that caliber. So I know PJ will be up for the matchup, and we should be good. And Nebraska, if we get an opportunity to play them, hopefully we win. They win. Coach Hoiberg has them playing really well. They just beat OU 105-99. They got 2 guys as well. One transfer from Iowa, Sanford, I believe, Price Sanford, who can really shoot the basketball. He shoots 66% of his shots have been threes this year, but also throughout his 3-year career. And so he's their leading scorer, and he's going to let it fly from the outside. And then they got a guy inside, Mast, who is pretty physical and already had a triple-double earlier this year. And so he's a guy that can rebound, can pass, and obviously score the ball inside as well. So that'll be a tough matchup. But hopefully, like I said, we'll get a chance to beat Mississippi State. And I'd really like to see us play against a really good Nebraska team.
If you want the scouting report on Achor, you come here. When he
I forgot to mention Achor. Yeah, so we are going up against Achor.
He was at the rec a lot, and I played fives with him a lot, and so I can give you the full scouting report on Achor if you need it, Clint. But appreciate you, man. I hope you have a great call on Friday. Are you going on Thursday to the game as a fan?
I'm not. I wish I could be there, but I got some other stuff I got to take care of on Thursday, so I'll try to catch a little bit on the TV.
All right, GoPowercat's going to be out there on Thursday and Friday, and then we'll be out in Utah for K-State's game out in Salt Lake on Saturday. After that, Clint, let's get back together and do another one of these real soon, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Thank you for watching The Clent Stewart Show, your Kansas State basketball podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to GoPowercat.com. This has been a GoPowercat and Spirit Street production.